I just want to touch on something that Craig mentioned a few moments ago, which I think is really important here. You know, I've been very, I don't know what word I would use, but disillusioned by some of the response that has come out of this entire episode since our last special meeting. I've heard insults and people calling us entitled and things like that.
Yeah.
In the year 2017, yes, we're entitled to electricity. We're entitled to it not because it's some God-given inalienable right. We're entitled to it because we pay for it and because we have a contract and because there are laws that apply to this. And so all we're doing is asserting our legal rights. It's not personal. It's not an attack on FPL. It is us asserting our legal rights, which is our obligation to our residents. And the reaction that we've gotten from FPL started, frankly, with Mr. Lean having the courtesy before sending the first letter of reaching out to their attorney to try to speak to him, which he responded to with a unprofessional response and didn't give you the time of day, frankly. He wouldn't get on the phone with you. So you sent your letter. In response to the letter, they put out a public statement. I think the adjective they used was self-entitled to refer to everybody on this dais. Why are we being personally insulted by a large corporation? We didn't insult them. We asserted our rights under a contract on behalf of our residents. It's not personal. I represent big companies every day in litigation. They don't respond to complaints and demand letters from the other side by lodging insults. They just assert their legal position, and they go forward with what litigation is, which is a dispute resolution method. That's all it is. So now we received what I think Craig very politely described as, because you're a gentleman, a colorful letter in response to your original letter. I would say it was a lot more than colorful. I would say it was somewhat unprofessional. It called, the claims in your original letter unprofessional. It said you didn't assert them because of any legal basis, but as some sort of political tactic. That's, again, a personal attack on you. You're a licensed attorney with the Florida Bar. You're a professional and an ethical person. And to insinuate that you had some other motive for sending the demand letter is offensive. And so we need to get to the business of communicating with FPL in a manner that leads to results. And I tell my clients every day, litigation, and I think the mayor touched on this, really should be a last resort. You should try to resolve things amicably if you can. We have an administrative process here, which I think we should exhaust while you go about the process of preparing a complaint that may or may not go forward. But we need to bridge the gap in communication here. And we need FPL to step up and to start speaking to us with some respect and attention that we deserve, not because we're entitled, but because we have a contract with them. The way that a company would treat any customer if it operated in a true free market. That's all we're asking. So, I think it's important that we get to doing that. I think the photos, Mr. Mayor, that you showed earlier in the meeting are, they speak for themselves.
They're shocking. Yeah.
And so I don't think it's ludicrous or whatever other label you want to put on it for us to say, hey, look at this infrastructure. Something went wrong here. Let's figure out what we do to get it right. And the last thing I want to say is, and you touched on this in your op-ed in the Miami Herald yesterday, I believe, none of this is really an attack on, certainly not on the crews that were out helping get our community back in order. That's obvious. But those are the type of things you say when you're trying to offend people rather than address the substance of their comments. But the other thing is, it's not even that much about the recovery part. The question is, why were so many people out of power to begin with? Not that it took a week or 8 days or 10 days in some of our cases to get power back, but why were we so many people without power to begin with? 90%. Was it because they failed to maintain the trees on the lines pursuant to their rights under this easement? Was it because they didn't abide by their obligations under the franchise agreement? Well, we'll figure that out as we move forward with this action and with this dialogue. But it's not a personal attack. It's not a political tactic. It is merely us doing our job and representing our residents and asserting our rights under a contract and under the law.
Thank
So
you.
the narrative that this is anything other than that needs to be set aside, and we need to get forward with the business of how do we resolve this.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Mena.